Welcome back to another episode of Magical Musings, and this is somewhat different, isn't it? We're not having a pre-recorded conversation being broadcast here. We're actually having a live conversation for a change. So I've come off a ban. Hopefully that'll last a while before I get banned again, probably. But today we have an unusual format. So with everything that's going on in Manchester right now, gosh, it's caused some controversy, hasn't it, lads?
It definitely has. It definitely has.
What do you, I mean, look, I put the post up yesterday. I think it was yesterday about Manchester events. What do you guys make of it? And what's happening over there? How do we deal with it? And there were some really interesting comments in that post where people actually analyzed the situation and thought to themselves, well, why is there such a big drama about this? B, is it legitimate? And what I concluded C is maybe some people have overreacted, some people have underreacted, some people have drawn conclusions without actually assessing the situation. So I think what we should do is let's have a look at the original clip that was first broadcast and that got circulated, which drew people's attention, and then we'll have a chat about it.
Oh shit! Oh, move back, move back!
Just mind the language,
Move
guys.
back, move back! Stop kicking people! You don't, you don't
Now,
come
this
there!
was the original clip, right?
Oh
This was the
shit!
first clip that was
Shit,
sent
leave them,
out.
move back! Shut up! Move back! Hey! Move back, move back, move back! Move back! Say! Move back! Move back! Oi! Oi! Shut up! Move back!
Right, so that was the first clip. That was the first thing that was put out there, and everybody started to react. Not rightfully, obviously. What they saw on that clip was a guy who was on the floor. He looked like he was under control. He wasn't posing any kind of immediate threats. And then you see that copper coming down and booting him in his head a couple of times, which I think was, I mean, just watching that, it was like, oh, like when you watch something and you're like, oh, and it kind of takes you back. It was one of those kind of reactions. Now, what were your first thoughts when you saw that video?
But my initial thought was the first thing that came into my mind was what happened in America. That moment, yeah, I can't breathe moment.
I can't breathe.
That was
Yeah,
that was the
George,
first thing
George,
that,
what's his
yeah.
name? Floyd.
Yeah, so when the Black Lives Matter movement arose, so that was my first thought. I thought, you know what, this is really bad. This is going to turn out nasty. This is.
Mm,
But then, but then my other thought was, this is a clipped video, right? Because
mm,
it starts from the kick and the guy's already down. So there's always
mm,
something happened before. Plus, I noticed that woman, the police woman, when she was walking around, there was a blood spots, drops of blood on the floor. So I
mm,
noticed that as well. I thought, hang on, there's been some sort of altercation, and these things. And generally speaking, I think police are used to violence, right?
mm,
And then it's really wrong. Okay, when there is an idea called resisting arrest, people do resist arrest. So they're trained to, handle that situation best way possible. So I was looking at some data about this, and in 2002, 2023 periods, the latest kind of data on it,
mm.
they had to use force 650,000 times, yeah,
Wow.
approximately
Okay.
in England. Now, when you look at that figure, that's a hell of a lot. And when
Mm,
you and they've broken the figure down as well. Okay, what kind of force? Taser, firearms? Is it just getting the person down? Do they have get into a fist fight? So they kind of break this
mm,
all the data. It's all publicly available data. So then you're like thinking, hang on, what was it about this incident that really got it going?
mm,
And then there's more to discuss about that, because was it the fact that he was Asian. You know, he was a Muslim. Yeah, and that was it. That, quite frankly,
You
is that the
know,
issue.
yeah, that's a valid point. You know, a day or two ago, somebody posted on Facebook. If you're watching this, I'd like you to post that comment again. I can't remember where I saw it, and they posted a video of somebody on TikTok or Instagram who shared another video of the same police, members of the police, the same team, doing something not similar, but being like very bullish and very arrogant in front of the public, really kind of giving it the large and throwing the weight around, and that was recorded just like a week before this incident. So there's obviously an issue with these particular people who are on the force, and there's also an issue surrounding this, which is a bigger issue. And I think a lot of people have missed this, because if we look at what's led up to this, I've spoken to a couple of former police constables and sergeants just today, and even from their kind of opinion, there is racism on the force. Manchester's known for it. Manchester Force is known for being racist. There was a report some years ago that the Manchester Constabulary and the Manchester Police Force in general were under some kind of investigation, and there was something that's being done to kind of get them back on track, which obviously hasn't worked. But people from the police force, former police sergeants, are themselves saying that there is racism on the force. And there are people out there who are throwing their weight around, being bullies. But there's another thing which is connected to this. And I think there's a culture. There's a culture of racism which is at play, and people have missed those kind of nuances in the rhetoric that's been spewed by the likes of politicians, the far right groups. Look at the kind of rhetoric that's been spewed by Cruella Braverman, Rishi Sunak in his latter days, blaming Asians, Muslims, Bangladeshis, whatever appeases the far right. And that's spilled over into some of the general public and people within even government jobs. And then you look at what happened in the Leeds incident, and all of a sudden what happened in Leeds, Romani community rose up against something that was happening against them. I think their children were being taken away by social services, and they got up and they protested. They started to do whatever they were doing, and the only person who was actually doing anything meaningful and stopping them was a Muslim guy, a counsellor there, putting his own life at danger. Yet the media portrayed it as though it was the Muslims who were doing this. Do you see what I mean? This is all crazy stuff that's going on, and people have missed it, and they thought, well, this must be an isolated incident. The police is doing this, but no, it's not. If you look, there's a trend of things happening, which inevitably results in the average person out there believing some of the stuff that they hear by quote unquote or so-called respectable people of the community, and they think this must be true.
I think you asked the question, what do we think when we saw it, my dear? And for me, definitely, I thought, ouch. And I really felt it when he kicked. And first, there was a kick in the face when someone's already been tasered, and then actually stamping on someone's head. Was there a need for that, really? And, I had to look twice. Is that actually a police officer, or is that some hooligan? Really to react in that excessive manner. Definitely, for me, there was an abuse of power. Definitely, there was excessive force that was used.
Yeah, and I think this is another thing which these police officers who I spoke to mentioned. They said, no matter what has happened before this, no matter what led up to this, there is no justification for what this policeman was doing in terms of kicking this guy's head in, literally. And they actually went some steps further. They said, some of them didn't want to be in camera, but they were saying things like, this policeman is not going to even notice that a lot of these people who are on his team, they're not even going to be supportive of him when it goes through the investigations, because their own jobs are going to be on the line. They're going to look through the evidence, they're going to look through the video, they're going to see what happened, the chronology of the events, and they'll leave him. They'll leave him for who he is, and then he's going to have to fight his own battles. So he's not gonna have the backup that he probably thinks that he is, or with the arrogance with which he walked the earth. You know what I mean? He's not invincible. And then they think he's likely to be made an example of. That they'll take him to court. He'll lose his job, and he could possibly even go to prison. That's what they think. Now, they themselves are Asian, former police officers, sergeants, high ranking. They've had various different posts, and respectable people of the community. And they themselves have said, this is what's likely to happen from our experience. So it's not a case of, is it a one-off thing? Do you know what I mean? He's not invincible.
I think when you say, Majid, that this is what people say is likely to happen, any sane person with an ounce of humanity would think that actually someone who's done something like this quite vicious, even the other second video, if the boys did attack unjustly the police officer, whatever's happened, that justice should be served. There'll be a fair trial. They're not going to be hung by the media before the trial, and actually then justice will be served. But me, you, and I'm sure all of our listeners and even wider society now, it's not even just a Muslim thing, they realize that actually to get justice from the people who have the power is a very difficult thing, and we know that, and history's proven that, whether that was, and you've clearly seen justice is very hard to get. Look at even the Stephen Lawrence case. I was at university in those days, and you look at the case of Stephen Lawrence. Why did people, even Imran Khan represented that, why did they even say they've not got the full justice, but they had to really work hard to get it? Even the trial after 7/7, that Charles Dominguez was mistaken as a so-called extremist, and he was he was shot blatantly. They got the wrong person. They wrongfully profiled him. It took his family 11 years, and they took it to the European Court, and they still didn't get justice. So it goes on and on. Look at the issue of the postmaster case. Not even non-Muslims. You see that wider society, there is an opinion, not just amongst Muslims, that actually to get justice from the people in power, especially if it doesn't politically benefit them, is going to be a very hard slog. It's not going to be easy.
Good point. Shafaqat Khan, brother Shaf, has posted a comment. He's saying civil unrest is instigated, justifying new draconian laws, police state, open prison, European theme for 2030 agenda, and similar protocols across Europe. Shaf, if you can elaborate on the European theme bit for 2030 agenda, that would be really helpful for those of us who may not be aware what that is. But civil unrest is definitely instigated, and there are things that are happening on a regular basis now which are causing unrest. Look, whether it's from the far right, whether it's from, as a response to the far right, or whether it's people protesting with the Palestine situation, or people who are protesting against the protesting of the Palestinian situation. There's definitely unrest, and the Western world has lost that balance now. I think they're quite far from being at peace, and we are quite far from being at peace with the rest of the world because of the decisions of a few who are in power. But it's affecting the local community. Let's have a look at the video that came out, which only came out, I believe, which was yesterday. And this is supposed to be showing... Well, before that, I'm going to just show you a couple of other videos which came off the back of the first video, and then we'll go into the that video itself. Let me find that and bring that up. So...
What do we know? You're on camera! You're on camera! No, we are good now! We're normal civilians! No! We have not done nothing. We have not done nothing. Look, we have not done nothing. We're just recording. I can't go home. You are showing he's getting locked up. No, what? Not really. Not really.
So these guys were apparently just recording, and they said you're going to get locked up for recording. Is that what you made up?
That video I think is afterwards.
After they arrested the other two.
The more police arrived, and then that's what they cornered these guys. And
and this guy himself got arrested and tased as well, I believe. I think this is the other. This is with the tasing bit, because that what we saw was the perspective of the guy who was talking to the police. Now this is the other side, filming the guy who we just saw who was speaking. Let me just put that.
Stop it! He didn't fucking do anything! Get off him! He didn't do anything!
I didn't see him do anything.
He hasn't done
Apart from
anything!
recording.
He hasn't done anything!
I can't see how he was posed as a threat either.
He hasn't done anything. He's going to collect us from the airport. You can't arrest him. What did he do? Why are you detaining him for no reason? What did he do? These haven't even done anything. Put you record him, I record him.
I don't know if you guys have seen this
He's
before.
not come to get us from the airport. Just ask him. He's my cousin, brother. I'm not gonna. Look at the faces. Why did I get these off? Bastards.
My ticket to go. You go to the barrier, you can pay on the barrier as well. You know what, my brother? They were my drivers. I don't have a ticket now. I don't have a token. Yeah,
And they were hitting an elderly woman for no reason. That's why they stepped in.
the police, they can do what they want at the airport. You can't say shit to them. Fuck's sake. I haven't got a token. I know, but if they're at the barriers, they'll explain it. They'll do that at the airport. The airport police are bunch of dicks.
And that looks like a guy who actually works at the airport.
The airport police.
Yeah, and he's saying that about the airport police himself.
There's a base.
Go on, son, I'll go.
You know, UT3, I've seen it when you're you just go onto the Met Police, the Manchester Airport Police, and you can just do it from there.
Don't mind me.
Yeah, if you go to the barriers, you tell them that.
The only reason they stepped in for hitting an elderly mother, that's why they're going to old grandma.
Drivers.
Okay, so these guys look like they're passengers, and the drivers have been taken away. Some crazy stuff going on in it.
Come here. How can I get you there? Look.
What are you doing?
Oh, here goes another one.
He's just come from the airport.
Now, I got sent this video, but I don't remember watching this bit.
Should get the passport, please. Should show you the passport. We'll show you the passport.
Whose phone? His phone.
We don't have his phone. But we're not even related to him. They just took our cousins that are drivers. We don't even know them.
Turn around, go away. I can't because I need to get my ticket. I need to get my ticket then and go.
Plus my also.
Is the driver. You took the driver. The driver you took. The token was
They weren't even part of it. They weren't even part of it.
That's on the buzzer when you get to the gate. You just tell them. I'm trying to have a conversation with you.
Not happy. Look at
Have you recorded that?
Yeah, I recorded it all.
That's fine.
I didn't turn my phone off.
Arrogance, though, right? I don't know how long. How long is this video? Okay, we've got another minute or so of this video. Let's just see what happens to the end of it. Play the other videos. I will play the second part, which came out yesterday, because this has obviously been circulating. Some of the other stuff that was going on. Maybe we don't need to see the rest of this. I think we've got the idea that they got issues there with their parking tickets, and nobody wants to listen to them, bichare.
Can I come in?
Yeah, go on.
You know, when these two videos came out, It was at this point that the politicians, that Lee Anderson, Richard Tyson, they're the ones that then came out and they gaslighted the whole situation by saying it was reassuring that the police acted this way and that they
Yeah.
deserve a medal. That was the point. So these two videos, they were out in circulation, they were in public, and this was reassuring. For me, when I was reflecting on this, I was like, you know what? No guy, right, will ever upset their mother, right? Their mother's in this
Or watch or
situation.
stand by watching the mother being insulted or assaulted.
Insulted because normally if you know your mom's around, you're going to be on your top behavior, really.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just goes to say that what on earth happened for a person that's got no criminal record, according to their who was their solicitor Ahmed Yaqub. They've got
Yeah.
no criminal record, for them to so go off the handle, as we'll see. But it was the gaslighting by these two politicians in particular.
True.
And then
True.
online, there was, one thing was, as a Muslim community, I think everyone came out. Solicitors, criminal lawyers, that are Muslim backgrounds, they all came out saying this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong.
Yeah, I
A
think
lot
the
of
other
people
thing
came
is,
out.
I think most people reacted to the first video. The Brother Rehan says, I think having
Yes.
seen both clips initially, the Asian guys overreacted, and that led to the police being way overhanded. This was partly because one of their own had broken nose, and they used the excuse that when police have firearms, they tend to be excessive because they can't afford to get into a scuffle and have their firearms taken from them. All said at the point when you have someone hands by his side on the floor and receptive to being restrained, the force was an abuse of the police, and I think that's pretty much the consent. There's a majority of people who would kind of say the same thing, wouldn't they? That because there's a situation that led up to this situation, which came to light a little bit later. So, from my understanding, what happened was these lads came to pick up their mum from the airport, who came from abroad. She told them that she'd had some kind of an altercation, or somebody said something or did something to her on the journey there. Them lads went to see the other guys who said something to their mum or did whatever, and that guy called the police. The police then came over, and I haven't seen anything else except for this next bit, which came out yesterday, where it looks like the police have gone over to these lads, and it doesn't look like they've had a conversation before, and it doesn't even look like they're having a conversation or even discussing anything with them. They just kind of went for it, not straight away, but pretty much like you can see in the video yourself. There's obviously no sound to this, but you see the police coming in there, in the middle there, and they're getting. And I think if you look on the right, the guy in the green shirt or blue shirt, that's where he hits that woman, and the police woman, and she's on the ground, and the one on the right is on the ground. He goes to save his brother who's just been tased. He gets tased himself. He's on the floor, and that's when the other guy is like gone for the kick. And from my understanding, that's the backstory. So you can see from that clip what's happened there, but what's happening between the other guy calling the police over and them going over to him, if there's anything that has happened in between, we don't know, if we're to be fair. So Brother Shaban says, I think there is more to come. For instance, why did the police come in the first place? I read that this wasn't all. The Asian guy's mum was insulted and pushed, and then the police came but didn't even ask the other person, who was white, and started to arrest the Asian. Okay, that's interesting.
I think you're with Brother Shaban's point, Majid, that the point is that video now that was released of the boys fighting back, really, I think that was very immature, very unprofessional. It's a live case. Just to release that video, not all of the evidence, and even while there's a live case going on, do we really, and we've known from previous cases, no matter what happened before, do we think that justice is going to be served? Do we think there's
Well,
going to
this is the thing. They say that the second video was leaked. How does a video get leaked from Manchester Airport?
the other videos
That
are
would be
fine?
the
People recording
yeah.
on mobile phones, but that was an actual. You can, from what I can tell, from a layman's point of view, that was an actual CCTV recording, I believe, from the airport cameras, isn't it?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
second video, the one that we just played now.
there was a man, he went to that place afterwards and he put a video out on TikTok and he says, okay, there's a CCTV camera over there and a CCTV camera over there. So there were CCTV cameras and near the entrance, just above the entrance, that's the footage that captures all of this scene. So for the Manchester police to release this, they were betting on, and I think they were advised on releasing it to save their back, basically, save their back,
Yeah.
and essentially feed into this whole narrative and this gaslighting, and just move on with this. And because if it was just about the truth, then like we say, from the beginning all the way to the end, you would build that picture in front of the people. But this is a trial by the public and media. This one is
Yeah,
completely.
Eddie says the
But
video was leaked from the parking company. Okay, so I wouldn't know, but in
It
either
was
case,
Manchester Evening News that released it originally.
released.
The
Yeah,
actual the video clip.
yeah.
So they so journalism basically.
I think there's a general consensus as well amongst the people that the ones who have the power. So whether just we're going through every day now, looking at the scenes, what's coming out of Palestine, how we can see the Zionist entities abusing its power, and we're living in a society now where whether it's the government, whether it's the media, and whether it's the police, and that's not only with Muslims, they abuse their power. They take advantage of their power and they don't behave in a very responsible manner. You look at even the point here, how so much, one thing that really hurt, to be honest with you, as well as the kick, was the response of many people. And it showed how the media and the government have created so much hatred. What have we done as a minority community and between different communities? So much hatred has been created. Why?
Well, here's the question. Here's
Political
even
interest.
even for the audience. Then here's the question. It's happened in Manchester. It's happened in Rochdale. It's geographically in a different place. Some people have actually said to me, "We're not interested in getting involved because it's happened in a different place and they can deal with it." Basically, that's what they're saying. It doesn't affect us and it doesn't apply to us. It's happened in a different place and they can deal with it, and the people of Rochdale and Manchester are involved and they should be dealing with it. We've got our own stuff to worry about more locally. What do you think of that kind of thinking?
Just to come on to that, right? I just want to point one or two things out that just happened over the last few days. Muhammad Bilal, the UFC fighter. Did you watch his entrance?
He won last night. Yeah.
Yeah. So
night before last night.
Yeah, so he won, and it's all about Palestine, Ana Filistini, and he bought the Palestine flag.
His parents are Palestinians, and he was brought up in
Palestinian, that's
America.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. So the Palestine flag. But the interesting was that what happened with that, what's his name? Dan White, isn't it? The interview when that reporter said to him, Dana White, sorry,
yeah.
in the interview when he turned around and said, okay, them UFC staff were trying to get the Palestine flag down from the cage and all this business. And Dana White turned and goes, I know what you're trying to do. And he actually got upset and he walked off, right?
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that, hang on, why was he targeting? Yeah. And this is the issue. Why are they targeting Islamic kind of issues, Muslim issues? And then you got the Olympic ceremony, right? Where they had...
Flipping it. You told me about that, I think yesterday or the day before, and I hadn't seen it. And only yesterday, last night, no, this morning, I had a look at somebody's post and they were talking about what they had done and what they were representing. And that guy from Smile to Jannah, Zishan, Brother Zishan, he makes some good videos. And I watched his video and I was like, whoa, did they actually do that? And then there was an uproar about people saying, you would never dare say something like that about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or you know, the Muslims wouldn't even take it. But you've got a free day
Yeah.
to say things and mock the religion of Christianity and Jesus Christ. Yet it
Yeah,
was the
ridiculous.
Muslims who were defending
Yeah,
that, defending Jesus Christ,
yeah,
and
yeah.
telling them actually that's not
You,
right. We'll say it.
But I
you
think
see
even
the
sorry, Bob.
so just to conclude, the point there is that they did apologize at to the Christians at the end. The Olympic Committee, they've apologized,
Okay, I didn't know
organizers,
that.
right?
I didn't know
Yes,
that.
they have. They said that okay, this is our explanation. This is what we're trying to do. Blah blah. But it's come across wrong. And but when it was the drawing of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam,
Yeah,
yeah,
there's no
it was all
apology.
about free speech.
Yeah, freedom of speech. Yeah.
It was so. It's a hostile environment that's known towards the Muslim community. That's not said publicly. What's said publicly is migrants. The word migrants. That's said publicly. Now, I think what we need to really get our heads around is what on earth is going on here. Why is there now? For example, today I don't know whether you've seen because Nigel Farage entrance interestingly he's not commented on this Manchester incident, right? But he's
Okay.
put a video. He's put a video out today, and he mentioned something really that I was thinking, hang on a minute, this is again targeting our community. In the RAF, there's a squadron, right?
Right.
And its nickname is the Crusaders. That's what it's known as,
Okay.
right? So what he has said, Nigel Farage has said, that the leader of the RAF, of that squadron, or the main guy, I'm not sure who it was, the chief. Someone has said, right, we need to scrap that name, the Crusaders. So
Right.
Nigel Farage has come out publicly saying, why should we stand down? This is our culture. We should be proud of our culture. Why are we bending
Yeah.
down to the one's culture? So what does that do
Yeah.
again? It feeds,
Yeah.
it points a finger at us that we're the problem here. We're the
Yeah.
problem. We're to blame for all the
Yeah.
social ills. And I tell you something, NHS waiting list is going through the roof. Operation list going through the roof. Today there's a announcement that there's a 20 billion black hole in the financial budget, in the budget of this country. So projects are going to go on the back burner, and they're going to be stalled, and they're going to be stopped. But the reality is what? The reality is there's been underfunding of police resourcing as well, completely. So then you're thinking, hang on, were they trained properly? You know how your introduction was? They're bullish. Actually, they've been underfunded. You don't know what they're doing, but everyone makes out that police are saints, yeah, but they're not. You know what I mean? They're just from this society. You look at Sarah Everard's case. The guy was a off-duty officer, handcuffed her, took her, raped her. He burned the body. He burned the body, right? And you're not thinking, okay, there are no saints here. Last week, the mother of the two ladies that were killed, I forget their names, they're from London side. And she said, look, and the officers guarding their dead bodies, they took photos of their dead bodies and put them on WhatsApp groups, right? And she
Wow.
goes, look,
Wow.
I have forgiven, as a mother of these two my daughters, I've forgiven the murderer, but I have not forgiven these police officers.
And this was my point, that we got to be careful as well, that we don't make it like the far right, just a us and them discussion. I think the point being is that any human being, even Islam, the Prophet ﷺ, they say that it's a way of life for any human being. That any human being actually, should they be treated in this manner, where someone of power has the right to abuse them. Bobby gave two examples. I mentioned Sarah Everard's case earlier on. Is this actually a decent manner? Like you mentioned, mocking of people. Should people's religion, the Olympic ceremony, is that building a cohesive society when someone mocks someone because of their religion, because of the color of their skin? Is this going to, and I think these are the kind of discussions now, not only Muslims, but also the non-Muslims are opening up. Because
Yeah.
injustice, they see that, whether it's the elderly, whether it's you've
Yeah.
got the civil rights movement, I think someone mentioned it earlier on, that these are happening because whether it's Fathers for Justice to other groups, people feel that justice is not being served. I
Yeah,
think
I
that
think
my discussion that and I put a post up earlier on the Facebook that, and I gave the example of Imam Ali radiallahu anhu and the Jew and the shield. Who was Imam Ali radiallahu anhu? They were the leader. So it doesn't matter if the other person was of a different faith, whether his skin color was different, but actually, if the evidence wasn't sufficient, then just because Imam Ali radiallahu anhu had the power, wasn't mean that he was going to win. Might is right. Actually, we were true to our laws and principles that you're innocent until proven guilty. And what is the saying that it's better to let a guilty person go free than charge an innocent person? I think these are the kind of things and the principles that
of
the
justice.
people of power claim to hold, that the wider society and us collectively, we need to start questioning.
Eddie says if all the communities came together, the government would be breaking themselves. The government divide and conquer. And this Eddie, our friend, is a British guy. He's non-Muslim and he's as English as you can get, you know. And he understands, and he's obviously more mature than some others, where he can see what's going on, and it's not a between. Look, it goes again, doesn't it? There are people who have vested interests, and for them to capitalize on what they want to gain, they have to cause these divisions. War sells and makes them money, division makes them money, you know, all these things make them money. But a decent human being out there can see things for what it is. But a naive person would probably be buying into some of the mainstream rhetoric and think this is fact. But those people who have a bit of intellect, they'll see beyond the facade, and they'll understand actually there's more to this than what's being made out. And you'll get people like, you know, Brother Eddie, I'll call him our brother in humanity, who is, you know, who's got a heart of gold. And he's simply magic. And I'll say the word magic because he's actually a magician. I'll give him some promo that's a plug-in for him. There you go.
Okay, do you know, just to add on to this back of Brad's point as well, is, you know, generally there's a culture mocking the police. You know, when we grew up, what were they known as?
Pigs.
Pigs, right? There was no respect for them. TikTok, right, and any other social media thing, they are full of videos mocking police officers, right? There was one video I just saw recently, and the police officer said to him, "What's your name?" He goes, "Oh, it's Louis Vuitton. Get on." Right, so on your bike type of thing, right? I was like, what cheeky guy. But there's loads of videos like this. They're just mocking the police. And you know, the police, the last year, I think last year or year before, the latest data, it says that how many times a police officer has been insulted in England? It's nearly 30,000 times, right?
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, so that's a lot, you know. And then, do you know, just back on that, you know, back on all of this point, right? Generally speaking, on violence and the lack of respect for authority, there's an undercurrent that exists within society. So it's happened so many times. If it's happened 30,000 times, why did this explode? Isn't it?
Yes.
And this is so then this comes down to the point of, on the back of the election, the back of many people playing the race card. Yeah. These are the issues that are happening.
Wasn't
you know,
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't them, and that's always for the benefit of the politicians. Sorry, Barry, what were you going to say?
That's okay. I like Eddie's point as well, because I think we got to rise above this rhetoric that where the atmosphere negative the government's created between communities, and really look and start to question things together. You know, you look at today's incident. You know, whether you look in Palestine, what's going on, children, 40,000 people killed, up to 15,000 children. You look at today's incident in Liverpool, where a 70-year-old would walk into a room full of children and start stabbing them. That what has led society to lose care of other human beings? Why has it become a norm to abuse other people, whether it's verbally, whether it's physically, and see them suffer and actually get some kind of high off it, and whether that's on social media or whether that's in Palestine? You know, why is society stooped to such a low level? And
Yeah,
that
I
for me
think.
starts questioning these morals and principles.
Yeah, and I think we're getting there now, where people are questioning these things. They're looking at what's going on around them, looking at how society has unfolded. They're looking at what's being promoted on by influencers, social media, and those of us who are slightly older, who have got greys in our beards and whatnot. We see things slightly differently. We see what was, we see what is, and we can see by assessing the two and analyzing the two, the past and the present, what's likely to be, given what usually leads up to these kinds of situations, and that comes with experience. You look at the riots that happened down south. You look at some of the things. I don't know if any of you guys have watched the Channel 4 documentaries, The Rise of the Far Right. There are a couple of different ones which were produced. I think there were 4 episodes. One was to do with the Southall. If anyone hasn't watched this, I'd highly recommend watching these. When I watched them, I looked at that and I thought to myself, "Oh my God, there's so many parallels with what's going on right now." When the BNP at the time were spewing their rhetoric, and as a result of that, resulted in deaths, people being killed on the streets, Asians by the skinheads, right? You look at what happened then, you can see parallels with what's happening now. And it's really scary because there were people who had to die for things to have changed and people to have risen up. What we see now is on a different scale, though. But if anybody hasn't seen that up till now, I would highly recommend it. I would say go and find the Channel 4 documentary. I'll try and find what the actual formal title is called, but a part of it's called the Rise of the Far Right. In fact, I'll Google it now while you guys are having a chat.
Yeah, just on this point, go on. Barry, are you gonna say something first?
And this is what I'm saying, that this is where one of the points I was going to mention at the end, that actually, what do we need to do? And for me, that's open dialogue, open communication of people from different
Sorry, just
backgrounds.
before I forget, just to pause, the documentary is called Defiance. It's a 4-part documentary. Please continue.
Because even if you look at this whole far right, it's fringe. There's a majority of people out there where there's discontent with life, with the way they be treated. So for me, there's open and honest discussions we need to have. Even look at the whole far right thing. The whole thing, migrants, people coming into our country, we've got to build a house every 2 minutes to accommodate them. They're taking our jobs. But from our parents' generation who came here, who worked damn hard, worked day and night, was actually because there's a labor shortage. And even now, if there was an open discussion and an open and honest discussion, you would come to the conclusion that without people and immigrants and people migrating to this country, you can't meet the labor shortage. Rather than all of the lies that are created in this far right thing, I think there is decent people out there where you can have honest conversations with, whether it's the issue of Manchester. Actually, is there abuse of power? Is there actually, do people feel, like I said, from the fathers' rights movement to the Islamophobia that goes on, that you can get justice in the system? The postmasters, they committed suicide because of the trauma they went through, and justice was served, and some of those, a lot of them were dead.
Yeah, and I think there's sorry, I think there's a few changes from before and now, and one of the critical differences is there literally are no solutions left. During these elections that just happened, name me 5 policies that you can remember. You can't. It was empty, and there was hardly any promises made because they knew they've got no money on the table. Like they've made the announcement today, no, the 20 billion pound black hole. So when you've got a situation where you can't offer the people something, right? The system is weakening. There's an interesting series and the discussions on, in magazines like Foreign Affairs magazine about, America declining Even Mehdi Hussein and Owen Jones in their series, in their podcast, they are talking about this issue. I think they released a video over the weekend where they're talking about how things are crumbling and what's going to be the reaction. What do we do as activists? What do we do? So they're kind of discussing this. So what's actually happening? Why is this happening? Why is it there's incidents like the Leeds incident, this Palestinian man got beat up in London, this Manchester incident? What is the theme that's coming across? And there is this narrative that's being built and pumped and really propagated, because now you've got the likes of GB News, which it says what it wants, Talk TV, what it says what it wants, and you got personalities like Douglas Murray, Matt Goodwin. You got all these kind of personalities coming through now. They're the narrative creators, and they are creating this narrative that, right, the little man is to blame. The guy
Can you
off the
just
boat,
imagine? Yeah, go on.
he's to blame. Now, and I think what anyone that's seeing what's going on here now is, you know what? When Nigel Farage went over to visit Donald Trump, right, because he got shot in the ear, you know, these people, the establishment, they are like this with the billionaires. The elite are the ones, the only winners in the last 10 years, whilst everyone has been suffering, has been who?
The elite.
That's it. If the
The
anger
ones
was
who own.
placed,
Yeah. Yeah,
if
if the
the
anger
anger
was
was
placed
placed at
in the right
yeah,
place, yeah,
yeah,
the
then
world
there
look
would be
like a different
change,
place.
wouldn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
there would be, because they'll have to distribute their wealth. They would have to change policies. They would have to change the way they work and privatize things or whatever it may be. But they're not letting go. They're not letting go, and it's unfortunate that this is all happening. And I think there's also a wider point to all of this as well, which is there's the elite element, and then there's also the Ummah element as well. And what I firmly believe is that there's an anxiety amongst Western nations that they've lost control of the Muslim street and the mindset, right? When, for example, the cartoons of the Prophet ﷺ were drawn, and there were issues kicked off in Pakistan where the late Khadim Rizvi, may Allah be pleased with them, they campaigned to get rid of the French ambassador. You know, they can't tolerate this kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
The what's happening in Palestine now, as soon as October 7th happened, the first thing that this government did was to say free from the river to the sea. That slogan is to be banned. She wrote to the Home Secretary as well, Bremen. She wrote to the all the police establishment about this.
She tried
So,
to pass that, as a law,
yeah,
but as a matter of law, to make it illegal for people to say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
will be free,
Even
right?
though
So
in the Likud party, their own manifesto, it literally says the same thing, from the river to the sea, but they obviously want to eliminate Palestinians, right? They want to have control over the whole of Palestine from the river to the sea. But that's not seen as anything negative. Anybody could say, well, that's genocidal rhetoric, even in their manifesto. You know, are you trying to get rid of all the Palestinians? Which we know it's obvious that they are. You don't need anyone's opinion to see what they're doing. But you can't say that against any Zionist entity. And Bina Khan just said on the post, it's sad to see how many people are still scared to give an opinion when we really should all voice up on issues like this. Sadly, Bina, you are right. Unfortunately, you're right. Unfortunately, you're right. There aren't as many people as we would need or would like to have to voice opinions publicly. To even get the establishment to understand that the sentiments on the ground are very different to what they think. They're out of touch with the community. They're out of touch with what people want and what people need or what people think and how they feel.
I personally think they don't care.
Yeah,
honestly, because they built this. They've let this go. You know what I mean? And they know where they're going with this.
I would slightly differ on that point. That if you look at it, one thing I was thinking about early on was actually you saw very quickly the incident happen in Manchester Airport. Within hours, the whole country was in uproar. It was national news. the point
Yeah.
Keir Starmer had to address it. So for me, actually, people very quickly now, they do speak up on social media, and actually it's a reminder for the people, it's you who's got the power. Like we mentioned, we know, and this is wider, it's not even just again, one is the Muslim community, but even wider societies realize that the double standards you mentioned, the hypocrisy, who follows BBC and Sky News now? It's Twitter, TikTok to get the truth. So for us now, we know what we're going to get from establishment or the people of power is going to be lies, double standards, hypocrisy. So for us now, we actually have the power, and this incident, as well as Palestine, many others, have really shown that we can get the truth out there very quickly. And even Keir Starmer had to address this. Why do you think even my view is that even why the last video had to be released to bring some balance? Because really it was painting the government in a really bad light. And that wasn't just from the Muslim community, even the wider community.
And this is why we need people to. Eddie says that's why I was laughing. By the way, I totally agree. I have been so scared to post on this live for some reason. I trust Majid to protect me if I get trolled. Eddie, I think I'll be running behind you to get protected if we get trolled. But the reality is, this is the thing. The less we comment, the less we like such posts, the less we post about such things, the more confidence it gives to the other sides, where they feel that they are right, and because nobody's saying anything, they're okay with it. You see, so this is why they say silence is complicity, and and all that kind of stuff. Because unless we speak up, unless we stand up and rise and say something that actually this isn't okay with me, actually this doesn't sit well with me, my religion, my culture, my values, my system, my country. When I say my country, I mean the UK. Don't look at the colour of my skin, all right? This doesn't stand with me, being from the UK, born and bred here in the UK, that my politicians, my so-called leaders are making decisions like this, and this, because they don't represent my values. They don't represent my thinking. And we have to stand up. Those of us who were born and bred here, we have even more of a duty to stand up.
Can I just add, I'm just going to go off a bit of a tangent here, right? But I think
That'll be
there's a
unusual
point.
for you.
Yeah. Bobby, before you go off on your tangent, can I address Majid's point?
Oh, listen, you're going to get booed to bed.
Look, guys, you heard it on screen. It's live. It's been recorded now, right? So if my head gets booted, you know what happened to it. We've got evidence before it's actually even happened. In fact, I'm going to go to the police and say, look, I got threatened. Live stream. I got threatened by this guy, and he's meant to be a respectable man in the community, and look what he did, and look at all these people who are watching. Actually, guys, don't report him if you are watching this. I'm sure he's only joking, although I'm shivering in my chappals right now. Sorry, Barry, what were you going to say?
I think, like you mentioned, the people of power is so-called. I think generally in society, everyone would realize, whether it's the elderly or we were in a discussion yesterday, living off a pension on their own, that they've made it. The government they're not interested in looking after the normal people. They're not. When we say, you said it in a different way, but generally, you'll see that the government are the government for the rich, the elite, the people of power. They don't care about the normal person, no matter what the color of your skin. And that's the conclusion wider society has come from. And they've realized, actually, we have to speak for ourselves. And that's why social media has become such a blessing. Podcast, you pick up the phone, you can raise your voice. You can give your opinion. No longer do the government control the narrative. No longer is it easy for them to push the lies. You can actually do that. So you have the power, you should represent yourself, you should come out and speak up, definitely.
100%. Bina just says, look at how the government ignored thousands of voices on Palestine and Gaza issue. Did our voices, did our votes and voices count? We were ignored. Great point. I think, especially with the voting element, voices, I would say there's definitely some value. If you divorce voices from votes, and say voices in general, yes, they do count. They know they count. If they didn't count, they wouldn't try so hard to suppress our voices. I've been shadow banned until recently for a reason. If it didn't count, why would they shadow ban me? My posts have been suppressed a lot, and if it didn't bother them, Why would they ban? Why would they suppress our posts? And those people who are using social media for this cause, they will notice. Those people who do speak up for the Palestinians and apply to the Palestinians and have done ever, they'll notice that their posts are being suppressed. And if it didn't matter, they won't try so hard. Brother Zahur is in the house. He's saying they have passed a bill to ban TikTok in the US. That's probably a good thing, Zed. For you, especially, you spend far too much time on social media. By your own admission, I'm not saying it. So I think that's probably a good thing for you. It's probably healthy for you not to be on TikTok. We've got Bobby on my TikTok account now, so spreading the load a little bit.
I think even on those points, very good point that you say it's a free society, but as soon as people get the power and the voice, and the government can't control the narrative, very quickly you'll see it going on globally now, and they really try to control the social media. Like you mentioned,
the bravery of this voice is, I saw a video. Netanyahu's hotel in Washington. There's a river besides it. Someone went on the boat, and with a loudspeaker shouting out, he's a baby killer, all of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
they know the power of their voice, and they're getting fed up with it. And they're like, how do you stop this wave, this tsunami that is wanting change? They're fed up. But the migrant card is not working. This blame card ain't working. Muslims are, on universal credit and they're nicking everything. That is not working. What do we do? What do we do? So now it's intimidation. And you know what? I think the point I was just going to make. I don't know whether Brother Barry. Sorry, I had to skip out this session slightly, but about this point about having sabr, right, for our Muslim youth, and this is very important. Because we've been there, youth, and you think that the world is against you, you are going to lash out, right? And that is something that we cannot afford to do. Inna Allah ma'a sabirin. Allah is with those that are patient. Especially, in flying, when you're flying, there's a level of anxiety naturally, just from the flight. But we know post 9/11, there's an extra anxiety that us Muslims have. Then if you are, and I'm being sincere advice here, if your sisters, your mothers, your aunties, grandmothers, you're intending them to go back home to Pakistan or to do Umrah or whatever it may be, get a mahram. Make sure they don't travel alone. The Islamic rules are here to protect, and to safeguard our our women. And these scenarios, then, I can't imagine many people would flip out if there's a bloke with a woman in any society. But when there's a woman, my wife has been through this. She was walking down a road, and she said that the man, he just started yelling abuse at her, hijab and this, that, the other. So I was like, oof. And then since then, we've learned that even if it's just a trip down, just a little town or just outside town, it's best to go with someone, because it's a hostile environment.
Risk management, isn't it? Bina says, why don't the BBC care about bringing out the real truth this time? Bina, I would just say, if you've heard of a guy called Loki, Lowkey, that man is a bank of knowledge, and he will help you understand. In fact, anybody, if you've not heard of Loki, you've got to look him up. He's a British rapper, and he is very intellectual, and he's a bank of knowledge. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he'll explain the connection between the powers and the establishment institutions like the BBC, and why and how, more importantly, they are influenced into making a certain side look better and another side look not so good. And there are very strategic interests at play here. And I'm sure you won't be surprised if I say that they're shocking. But then again, we shouldn't be shocked anymore at these kind of things. I have seen how some of the airport police behave, and honestly, I think it's so much harder for Muslims now. Just the looks we get at times say it all. Bina, just say Allahu Akbar quite loudly. That usually works. Just kind of seem to scatter away. You'll be all right.
Like they mentioned, and Bobby mentioned all about the airport. And honestly, it's such a nightmare. I mean, I'm going to have to do it again in a few weeks' time, but whenever I come with family and I look at the people around me, I have to really bite my lip. you know, to elderly ladies, oh, you come here. Are you deaf? Can you hear me? Don't you understand me? You know, very derogatory in a very rude
Yeah.
manner. And
Yeah.
often,
And that elderly lady may have a doctorate and a PhD,
yeah,
and she must be
it's
maybe
just
more
very.
highly educated than all her family.
This is the border police. This is the people of authority. And then you think, so well, actually, is that the right mannerism to talk to people in? And then if you talk to people in that way, it's wrong. But what do you expect back? And that's what I'm saying. These social norms that you've created, where you mock people, you abuse people, you ridicule people, then what do you expect? The society is going to be like that. That's why you've got the kids, how they treat their teachers at school, how they bully each other, how they swear and abuse each other on social media, because you've created this and these are your values. And for me, what we've got to question. And it's absolutely, I'm doing 2 weeks' time again, the way they talk and treat people in an airport when you've come off a tired flight, you know, it is a very difficult. On Bobby's point, you have to bite your lip, and it's very, very hard. And often I've said to them, look, guys, I'm sure there's a better way of talking to people.
Yeah. Well, just by looking at the color of your skin and if the way you're dressed gives them the permission to talk to you in a colonial, masterful kind of way, isn't it? The colonial masters are at play again. And you just can't get away from that. You can see it. It's so obvious, that arrogance and that superiority complex, that just because you're brown, you don't dress like them, you may not speak the same language as them, or prefer not to speak the same language as them, so that makes them better and you less. So, it's like, how does that work?
Any human being, whether you're Muslim or not, why do people like the Qatar World Cup? Who wouldn't want to take their families in an environment and a society where you're not always on edge? But actually, people can treat you with respect. You can go about your day, you can have fun, you can have entertainment, you can have enjoyment, where you're not always on edge thinking, I'm going to get abused. Someone's going to say something. It's absolutely horrible when you compare this. This is why people actually loved an environment like that.
Well, there are people who wouldn't want that kind of environment where they can't drink alcohol, they can't be all thuggish, and what's the word they use for football? Hooligans, yeah. Some people like the hooligan lifestyle. You know what? We're going to try and get Brother Riaz Khan to come on here someday. I think he was known for being a football hooligan from Leicester, and he's worked really hard with the local communities. I actually met him at an event recently, and I think I'll probably make a connection with him and see if he can come on at some point. Football hooliganism. He was in it proper from Leicester. Like, he was right in the middle of that thug life. And he changed his ways, and he inspires people, and why that isn't such a good thing, and why things work better if you do things more humanely.
That was
for a better word.
Turn a thuggish environment into a family environment, just by people respecting each other and behaving in a more morally upright manner.
Just on the one point, right? Do we really want to be having this discussion and debate again? No, because it's not
I
nice.
don't know, man. I think I would.
No. You're honest, generally speaking. This violence. Who's to blame? All of this. It's just
right.
this building. This building bridges. Dilly Hussein from Five Pillars.
Yeah.
His discussions that he's been having with far right activists. He was recently on his podcast.
Jada Francis, I saw that.
Yeah.
That one.
Nick Griffin.
Nick Griffin.
And I couldn't believe it. But then, do you know what? That was inspirational. That actually you can go down and sit down with that person, and you can have a level-headed discussion, and it is far better than that gutter trash that you're going to get from all these other channels, that the GB News and Talk TV, etc. It is meaningful, and I'm telling you, that is the way forward, and that is, and he's leading the way on this. I feel right.
100%.
Definitely, and I think the general consensus is and I think we need to all have come to a consensus is what is going wrong in the world, because there is a frustration. As a father, you feel frustrated. As a husband, and as an employee, as an employer, everyone's like, the system is not working for me. What is going on? What's the point of it all? And we as Muslims are going through this. And I would
Yeah.
say we're going through this a lot more because of our connection in the Muslim world. We read about it, we see the images, we see the news, and we know like what happened in Bangladesh just recently. How many people know about that? But this is something that we live through day in, day out. So the fallout, we are living with it, and so are you, right? And
Yeah.
we need to start talking about this. We need to talk and say, look, I'm paying my taxes. I am level-headed. I'm trying to raise a good children that are respectable to their elders, who are well educated. Why am I the problem? Why am I being singled out by the establishment for being an issue? Why is it that elite are pointing finger at me for this? Why is it that Majid Waris was shadow banned? You know, these are the discussions that need to be had, and they're honest discussion, and that will help carve out the way forward for us, inshallah, I think.
Yeah. 100%. Barry, were you going to say something then?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So, Bina says, I was so concerned and upset when I saw the standard template responses from MPs on the Gaza issue. Even our politicians had a dictatorship message given to them. The initial responses were appalling, and this is precisely what both Barry and Bobby were saying, that this democratic system, as we call it, is actually failed. You know, for so many years, this championship of democracy and, we've got to free the dictatorship rules of the world and give them the gift of democracy. Actually, we're not even in a true democracy ourselves in the West. Our decisions are the decisions of the people who we believe we've elected to make decisions on our behalf, or put our sentiments forward and decide for us, or maybe not even sometimes decide for us, but they're elected to represent us. They're not really representing us. That's not what democracy was set out to be. So our own systems are flawed here in the West, where we feel that, look at the times you would contact, as Bina says, your MPs regarding the Palestine situation. You would just get a standard template response, which doesn't address the questions or the concerns you've actually raised. Rather, they would just respond with a standard kind of, like a politician does. They don't actually address the issue, and they'll just put something else to deflect you from the real issue, so you can just say, "Oh, I got a response," and they think you're stupid. They think you're thick. They think you're not important enough. You get treated like trash, like gutter. Like you think you
Yeah,
don't even matter.
it's horrible. Yeah, it's horrible. This Sister Bina, right? I think it's important that the genuine kind of feelings that we have of concern for people. Even honestly, Gaza, yes, there's a concern, but people on my street, I worry, right? Because they are elderly on my street, and I know they're alone. You see, there are single mothers that live in my neighborhood who are struggling. There are mothers. During the summer holiday started, and the
Yeah,
conversation is childcare costs are through the roof,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
I have to work, and then what am I going to save at the end of the month? It is a real, genuine concern that everybody's got concern, and they're not being addressed. And what is worse for us is we're getting blamed. And I think
Apparently,
this,
yeah.
And on
you
that
know,
point, like you both mentioned, that's where the values of the system that it portrays, that actually we stand for humanity. Do you really? If you could stand by and watch so many people get butchered, you could
Yeah,
stand by and watch the elderly die in their own homes. You
yeah,
could twist and lie about someone's head being stamped on. All
yeah.
of these things. Where actually do you really care for human life?
They don't.
Standard template you're talking about, you don't really care. You just have to give a response because
Yeah.
it's part of your job role. All of these things, people are questioning, Muslims and non-Muslims. This is why I'm saying it's a wider discussion, that you don't really care. So don't say you care for humanity.
Zahur also had a response. Being a Khan, the establishment position on Gaza has been the worst I have ever seen on any issue. 100%, it's true. And again, if you look at why, everything makes sense. If you look at the connections from that level, the elite level, the politicians, the people who make the decisions above, and who they're connected with, why they're connected with those people. Again, I would say go and look up Loki, and watch some of his videos, and it's astonishing. Our data being sold to who, why, people from certain countries, secret services, who are employed by certain politicians here as part of the wipes companies, and the technological advancements made here, and how they're integrated with another certain countries' secret services, and our information and data being shared with them. It's really dirty. It's filthy, absolutely filthy. And you look at make those comparisons. I was just going to say, Eddie says, look at Ukraine and how many of their all religions have been killed as well. I was just going to make that comparison with Ukraine. If you look at how the Western world has actually gone on to help Ukraine, because it is, for a better word, being colonized by another nation, everyone's supporting them. But where you, for the 75 years, in the last 75 years, because of this country's decision from the Balfour Declaration, and previous to that, the things that were happening previous to that, the Balfour Declaration made by Lord Balfour here in the UK, which gave the Palestinian land to a people, and said a land without people for a people without land, is all BS. There were people there. There were Jews, Muslims, and Christians living in the most harmonious, peaceful time ever in history during that time, before they chucked Europeans there. You just got to question yourself, right? Why would a country in the West, like you got the UK, you got the US, why would they give a people who have been abused by Europeans? Yeah, let's get the facts right. Yeah, these are a nation of people who follow the religion of Judaism. They were treated mistreated by the Europeans. Hitler was a European. He's German, right? Why would they get those people out of there and appoint them a leader who is an atheist, Theodor Herzl, the leader of Zionists, who founded Zionism, to represent the Jewish nation, the European Jews, to move to a small part of a land within the Arab states, rather than giving them a piece of their own land somewhere else in Europe? You've got to think behind what you see in the media and think, well, what's going on behind that? Why would they do that? And when you really start looking into this, then you get to understand there are bigger things at play here. Otherwise, look how big America is. Look how big Russia is. Why won't they give them a place there? Why? Why did it have to be there?
This was my talking about earlier on, whether we are still on this very horrible journey. Every day, every night, we got to look at the images coming out of Palestine, and what is, and Muslim or non-Muslim, the one who has any ounce of humanity or can think rationally will tell you what there's an abuse of power, there's injustice, there's double standards, there's hypocrisy. Now, do you blame people whether they see what goes on at Manchester Airport or what happened to Sarah Everard? That people are exactly the same thing: abuse of power, double standards, hypocrisy. And do you expect all of us to really believe that justice is going to be served? Do we not going to see the media spin on it? Incident after incident, this is happening, and people have just lost all confidence. And that was my point earlier. Therefore, we've got to speak louder, be more articulate, and raise our voices on the platforms we have.
Yeah, 100%. Abina again says, we know it's not about religion, it's about greed, power, and selfish political agendas. And Brother Zahur again, it's not even hidden anymore. Yeah, it's like they don't even hide it anymore. The agenda is in plain sight. But the general public are constrained by the system and are unable to do anything. And I think this is why I think we sometimes underestimate our own power as a people, collective power. If you look at just by how much influence we've been able to have as a community, as a people who have shared a certain belief or a view, we can influence decisions, but as long as we are seen together and we raise our voices together. And I shared an image on LinkedIn the other day. I don't know if I've got it anymore, where these politicians are around a table looking like they're making the decisions, and the table itself is resting on the backs of the general public, and the caption was, "You just need to stand together, and the game is over." Do you know what I mean? So they're like
100%.
chess table on over the
Mhm.
arching of the general public's back. Those people are in power because we voted them in, or the public voted them in. You see, but when there's a collective consciousness and an awakening of conscious awakening of a people, that's when they know, actually, you know what, we've got to do something different now. And they'll always think of something different. They'll always think of something new. It's not, I don't mean to sound like it's us against them and everything, but the reality is the people who are in those positions don't represent the sentiments of the majority of the people. And the majority of the people aren't speaking up for those people to understand, actually, this is the majority view and not a minority view.
There's a brother's asked a question as well in a comment, Majid, to that. And I see that he's saying, we know the history of both Labour and Conservative, so why are you
Yeah.
expecting anything different?
Yeah. That's Brother Javed Sher.
Yeah, it's here, yes.
Yeah. Spoken like a lion, Sher. Okay, so
Definitely.
we're going to be running up to Maghrib in half an hour, 20 minutes. So, as part of final words, we have, let me read out the last few comments. We know it's not about religion, it's about greed, power, and selfish political agendas. Eddie says, if you could go back in time, what would you stop from happening? Oh, that's a good question. How far do you want to go back, Eddie? It depends on how far we're allowed to go back to see what we would change from there. But if we could go back to the early 1900s, then we would advise probably Sultan Mahmud not to do certain things or make certain decisions and keep the Ottomans alive for the betterment of the community. Being a Khan, we definitely need more diversity in our political leadership in the UK, an MP level with a real voice power. I'm not so sure that works personally, because we've seen MPs who have had the greatest of intentions. I am a believer that you have to be around the table to make a difference, but there are certain tables which are crooked in the first place. You're going to slip off them as soon as you get there anyway. If you look at the political makeup of or the membership of Parliament, for example, you have around 600 MPs. Let's just say you got a handful, 10 powerful MPs who are representing the voice of the minorities. They still need to win the confidence of 590 odd other MPs before they can get their motion heard and passed, and so on and so forth. I think the system is set up to fail. There's an illusion of choice, and that illusion can be broken as long as there's enough of a number of independent, truly independent people, rather than those representing major parties. Because major parties themselves, if you are voting in somebody who is well-intentioned, somebody who does speak the language you speak in terms of your values and whatnot, and you want them to be in, sooner or later there will be influence to follow the party line, and there will be restrictions on them. That's my
Can
point
I
on that.
just
That's my
can I just add
yeah.
one thing, right? There was a discussion I was listening to just recently about America and it's the republic model, and they were saying,
Okay.
the tension within the political system at the moment is
Yeah.
so great. They say, okay, will the actual republic model be able to withhold this pressure,
Oh
right?
wow.
Or do we need
Okay.
to change the model? And this is the same discussion, interestingly, that's happening in France, because France, I think they're on their fifth republic now, because they keep on changing who's got the power. Is it the presidential level? Is it at this other ministerial level? Is it at prime minister level? Who's got the power? Where is it? Where is the balance of power? So they're having this discussion, because at the minute, from the French elections, it looks like no one's a winner, and they are having real trouble as to what should happen next in France, and everyone's watching that. So in this country, they're like, right, I think it's going to go down the similar or same route as the other Western nations, because they're not coming out with the solutions. They're just polarizing debates and antagonizing situations, and the
Yeah.
people are the victims here.
Plus, I think one man, one vote doesn't work, and I think that's a flaw in real democracy. As a standard one man, one vote thing, I'm not a believer in that. I don't think that works. Eddie Young, we feel slaves to government. We get taxed when we are born till the day we die and we got buried. Yeah, brother, you're absolutely right, and thank you all the respect kinds and putting up with me. Thank you for putting up with us, Eddie, and thank you for joining us again tonight. So yeah, this was going back to the original conversation. Now, we were looking at this situation in Manchester, and we watched the videos. We looked at what happened in the first video, and we looked at what was brought into light in the second video. I still think as a community it's important to be having these discussions, even as a community, to be seen together, to make a stance as a community, where we stand on this particular subject, because if we don't, then the opposite obviously means that it's not important. And I think these things are important to be discussed as a community and to make a formal stance, and put our views across. So with that said, Bobby, Barry, any final comments?
Bobby, you can go
But,
first.
yeah, but my real fear is they've unleashed this blame culture. The system is not self-reflective of its own flaws. They're not admitting to anything. The poverty level is going to increase. Tension will increase. The Nigel Farage, the more comment that he said today about the Crusaders, the more I think about it, it's not responsible it's not responsible politics. It is there to
Yeah.
inflame. It is there to divide. It is there to cause trouble. So that's what their approach is. And why it's important is, like you mentioned, just on a local level, is building bridges has to be on our minds. And no, number two, our institutions can't be asleep on this, because this is going to carry on. I can't see these kind of issues going away. There'll be a regular occurrence. They might not happen in our little, town, but the mood and the atmosphere definitely is. People are talking about this, and it's getting a bit too much.
Barry?
My end conclusion points would be that definitely, whether it's the police in Manchester Airport, the people of power, the police, the government, the media, far too long have they been very irresponsible, very abusive of their power. The double standard, the hypocrisy, the discrimination. And I think it's about time which is really what's happening in wider society as well, that people start to question this and not let them get away with it, and be very careful that we don't fall into the trap and let them divide society. It's not us and them. Definitely is society and the people of power, the governments, but not us and wider society. And it's important for us, our institutions, to come out, speak up publicly, to engage with wider society more and more, to remove a lot of these lies, and as well as exposing what's going on out there.
100%. And on that note, ladies and gents, thank you for joining us once again. Just so you know, we don't often do these live streams anymore, but we are continually producing new episodes and recording new episodes on the YouTube channel. Do subscribe on there. It's at Majid Warriors, and we're also on TikTok now as well. I believe that's the place to be. We're still getting used to that platform. We don't have any subscribers, so have a heart, feel sorry for us, and show us some compassion, and start following us on TikTok. Good to see you guys. Those of you who commented, thank you very much. Always appreciate your input. It helps us understand and gauge where we're at, and whether where we're at is where we should be at, or whether there's more to be done or less to be done in certain ways. But Thank you once again, and we'll keep you informed of the next one. Otherwise, this Wednesday we've got the next episode of Magical Musings being released on Facebook. Sorry, mainly YouTube, and that is on the subject of early marriages, getting married early. So those of you who have missed it or have been living under a rock, then you should know that we are talking about really interesting topics on the Magical Musings YouTube channel. And we've been talking about colonialism, the colonial mindset, how our minds have been affected by the colonial powers to be, and how we as people who have formerly colonized nations have been thinking things because it's inbred in us, but it's not a part of what we really feel, and why we think things like skin coloring or eye coloring, hair coloring, and that kind of thing to imitate our colonizers is a good thing. And where's the standard set? Who sets the standard? Black is beautiful, and it always should be. So these are the kind of things we've been discussing on that. But tomorrow's podcast, not tomorrow, Wednesday's podcast at 7 p.m. is going to be on the topic of marriage, being or getting married early, or if you are a parent thinking of how to approach that topic with your children, and what the benefits are of marrying early, and what could be the detriment of leaving it too late before you get married and buying into this BS about it's got to be about the career first, which sounds all logical, go and get an education, then go and get a good job, then earn a lot of money, buy yourself a nice house so you can provide for your family before you even think about getting married. And people's lives have gone by, lives have been lost, opportunities have been lost, and they can't get that time back. So we have to rethink everything. So this is the conversations we're having on Wednesday. These are the kind of conversations we're having on this platform in general. So thank you once again for being here. Do go over to YouTube and go and look for the Magical Musings podcast. You can see that scrolling on the screen down there, and we'll hopefully see you there soon, inshallah. Otherwise, have a good evening, have a great weekend, coming weekend, although it's still a few days away. I'm already there mentally, and we'll see you when we see you. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes.